Jared had always been a salvage pilot. He had flown through countless star systems, scavenging old wrecks and abandoned freighters. He liked the quiet of space, the hum of his ship, and the thrill of uncovering things that others had abandoned. On this day, his sensors picked up an unusual distress signal coming from an uncharted moon in the outer reaches of the Gallian sector. Most people avoided this area. The moon's atmosphere was thin, the surface jagged, and pirates were rumored to hide there. But Jared didn't care. A distress signal meant someone needed help. That was enough for him to risk it. He guided his small ship through the debris-filled atmosphere of the moon. The surface was rugged, full of sharp rocks and steep cliffs. His ship's landing thrusters fought against the uneven terrain as he brought it down near the source of the signal. The signal was weak, fluctuating like it might disappear at any moment, but he managed to trace it to a crash site not far from him. The shuttle lay in pieces. Smoke rose in thin plumes and sparks flew from exposed circuits. At first glance, it looked like a routine crash. No survivors, he thought. That was usually the case in this sector, but as he approached on foot, he saw movement among the wreckage. Something was alive, something that moved quickly, too fast to be human. Then he saw her. She was unlike any alien he had ever encountered. Standing a little taller than a human, her body was lithe but muscular. Her skin shimmered in a pattern that reminded him of polished metal, gold and green stripes shifting as she moved. Sharp claws extended from her fingers and her eyes glowed like amber torches in the dim light. Her teeth were sharp, jagged, and when she hissed at him, he realized just how dangerous she could be. Jared froze for a second. He had dealt with aggressive creatures before, but nothing that looked like this. Yet, despite her terrifying appearance, she didn't attack immediately. She was trapped under a heavy piece of metal debris, struggling to free herself. Her tail lashed the ground and her breathing was ragged. She was clearly injured. Jared knew he had to act. Time was critical. If he didn't get her out soon, she might bleed out or die under the heavy wreckage. He rushed forward, grabbed the metal plate, and lifted it with all his strength. She sprang free in an instant, faster than he expected. In a flash of motion, she lashed out and bit him hard on the forearm. Pain exploded through Jared's arm, sharp and sudden. He staggered back, dropping the metal debris. He looked at his arm and saw small puncture marks. Blood was dripping from the wound, and it burned. He instinctively raised his other hand, preparing for another strike. The alien woman hissed, showing her fangs, her body tense and ready to strike again. Jared realized she thought he was a threat. Maybe she thought he was a slaver or worse. He had no time to explain. "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm here to help." She paused, tilted her head, and glared at him. Her breathing was heavy, her eyes glowing fiercely. For a moment, Jared thought she might attack again, but then she froze, sniffing him as if something had changed. "Did she?" "Just," Jared muttered, noticing her sudden hesitation. "Your blood," she said finally, in a voice that was harsh but clear. "You carry my mark now." Jared blinked. "Your mark?" "Yes," she said, her eyes narrowing. "By Vishari law, a bite shared in combat or rescue binds a mate." "You are mine now," Jared laughed nervously. "You're joking, right?" That's a law?" She didn't smile. She glared at him like he had lost his mind. "You do not joke about Vishari law, human. A bite binds. That bite is sacred. You are my chosen mate." Jared's heart skipped a beat. He tried to process her words. "Chosen mate?" he repeated. He had rescued her. She had bitten him. And somehow that made him legally her mate in her culture. Before he could respond, his ship's scanner beeped loudly. The signal from the wreckage had been traced, and it wasn't just a local alert. Somehow, the Vishari communication network had registered the bond. Other ships were now locking onto his location. Fighters, scouts, all heading toward him. Jared's eyes widened. "Oh no," he muttered. "This is not good." The alien woman Kirill saw his reaction and shook her head. "Do not worry, human. The law will protect us. Both, but do not test it. Vishari fleets are persistent." Jared swallowed hard. He had faced pirates and mercenaries before, but an entire alien fleet? That was new. His mind raced. He didn't even know if she was on his side. He barely knew anything about her species. And now they were heading straight for him. He had to act fast. "Okay," he said, keeping his voice steady. "First we get you aboard my ship. Then we figure out how to handle, this whole mate situation." Kirill didn't respond immediately. Instead, she moved toward his ship with a cautious but graceful stride. Her claws clicked against the metal ground as she approached. Jared followed, his arm throbbing from the bite. Inside the ship, he helped her onto the seat, careful not to touch her too much. Kirill's eyes followed him, sharp and unyielding. She wasn't used to humans, and it showed. "You are strange," she said finally. "But you are alive. That is enough," Jared nodded. "Thanks. You can call me Jared." "Kirill," she replied, her voice like gravel over silk. They sat in silence for a moment, each assessing the other. Jared knew that explaining human culture wouldn't matter. She had her own rules, and those rules were clearly serious. The bite was a serious matter, and now he was bound to her in a way he didn't fully understand. His thoughts were interrupted by a series of rapid beeps. More ships were approaching, closing the distance. Jared's fingers flew over the control panel, trying to activate his ship's stealth system. The hum of engines filled the cabin as the ship powered up. Kirill watched him with an intensity that made him nervous. "You are clever," she said. "Humans often are not. Perhaps this will work in our favor." Jared smirked weakly. "I hope so, because if not, we're both in trouble." The first Vishari scout appeared on the radar. Its design was sleek, deadly, and unmistakably military. Jared's ship shuddered as the scout fired a warning shot across their path. Kirill hissed and instinctively crouched low, her tail lashing. "Don't worry," Jared said, though his voice betrayed the tension. "I've handled worse." Kirill's ears twitched. "Worse?" she asked. Jared nodded. "Trust me. This is just a polite warning. Nothing serious. Yet." He maneuvered the ship through the jagged terrain, using the moon's craters and cliffs as cover. Kirill's eyes tracked every movement, noting his strategy. She had fought in countless battles, yet she was impressed. This human was not helpless. Hours passed in tense silence. The Vishari fleet did not attack directly, but they followed relentlessly. Jared realized that escaping them entirely was impossible. They would force him to comply with whatever laws dictated their bond. Finally, he decided to communicate. "Kirill," he said, keeping his voice calm, "I think they want us to go back with them. Whatever this mate law thing is, I think we should follow it for now." Kirill nodded slowly. "Yes, that is wise. But do not misunderstand. Being bound does not mean weakness. You will be tested," Jared frowned. "Tested? How?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out at the horizon, where the Vishari ships gleamed like predators in the dim light. "You will see soon enough," she said. "But first, survive the journey to the flagship." Jared gritted his teeth. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This was law, culture, and survival all mixed together in a way he could barely understand. Yet as he glanced at Kirill, he realized something. She was not his enemy. She had bitten him, yes, but she had also survived against impossible odds, and now somehow they were linked. The journey continued, tense and uncertain. Jared piloted with care, using every trick he knew to avoid direct confrontation. Kirill remained quiet most of the time, observing him, testing his reactions, and occasionally offering advice that saved them from danger. By the time they reached the edge of the Vishari fleet, Jared felt exhausted, but alive. Kirill leaned back in her seat, watching him with a mix of curiosity and cautious respect. "You are unusual human," she said softly. "Perhaps worthy." Jared smiled despite the situation. "Thanks, I think. I'm just trying not to get eaten or arrested." Kirill's lips twitched in what could have been a smile. "You will do more than survive. But first, you must prove yourself," and with that, they entered the outer perimeter of the Vishari flagship, unaware of the trials that awaited them, unaware that a single bite had changed the course of both their lives forever. The massive Vishari flagship loomed above Jared's ship like a living predator. Its metallic surface reflected the dim light of the distant star, and its sheer size made Jared's small vessel look like a toy. Alarms blared briefly as the flagship scanned him. Automated landing clamps extended from the docking bay, ready to secure his ship. Kirill's eyes were sharp as she studied the massive vessel. "This is my clan's command ship. Once we enter, you will meet the elders. They will judge your worth," she said calmly. Her voice was steady, but Jared sensed the tension beneath it. Even she was aware of how alien this process was for a human. Jared swallowed hard. Judged for being bitten for whatever this mate thing is. Kirill gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "By Vishari law, the bond is sacred, but the clan must approve. If they reject you, it could mean dishonor, and I will not survive that." You must show your courage, your cleverness, and your strength. Only then will they accept the bond fully. Jared ran a hand over his face. I just rescued you. I didn't sign up for trials or court or whatever this is. She raised an eyebrow. You rescued me, and by that you invoked the bond. Do not underestimate the seriousness. This is not negotiation. You will either survive the trials, or you will fail. Their ship entered the docking bay, the clamps locking them in place with a heavy metallic thud. The bay doors opened, revealing a vast interior. Jared had seen military ships before, but nothing like this. The walls pulsed with energy, and dozens of Vishari warriors moved gracefully along the corridors. They were all taller than humans, their movements precise, every muscle controlled. Jared felt small and out of place. He gripped Kirill's shoulder lightly, and she glanced at him, her amber eyes steady. Do not falter, she whispered. They moved through the corridors, heading toward a chamber that was clearly reserved for judgment. Jared noticed that other Vishari were observing him, whispering in a language he could not understand. Some looked curious, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. At last they arrived at a large hall. The walls were decorated with banners of battles fought long ago. In the center, seated on a raised platform, were the elders. Their presence was commanding. They exuded authority, and Jared felt a shiver run down his spine. Kirill stepped forward and bowed deeply. Jared followed, awkwardly mimicking her movement. The eldest elder, a towering figure with golden stripes running across his scales, fixed his gaze on Jared. You are human, he said, his voice deep and resonant, and you have been bitten by Kirill. You claim to have rescued her? Jared nodded. Yes, sir. She was trapped in a crash. I lifted the debris and got her out. That's all, the elder's eyes narrowed. Many claim they are brave. Few understand the consequences. Kirill has been injured. The bite is not merely symbolic. It is sacred. The bond you share is serious. Are you prepared to face the trial of worth? Jared swallowed, nodding. I'll do my best. The elder's eyes seemed to pierce through him. Best is not enough. Only the worthy survive. Kirill stepped closer. Do not underestimate him, she said, her voice firm. He may be human, but he has courage. You will see. The elders exchanged looks before the oldest one finally spoke. The trial begins at dawn. You will face 3 tests. First, a test of intellect. Second, a test of skill and agility. Third, a test of courage and protection. Fail any and the bond may be broken, Jared's heart pounded. All in one day? He asked. Yes, Kirill said, and you will be watched at every moment. The night passed fitfully. Jared could not sleep, worrying about what awaited him. Kirill too stayed awake, her eyes occasionally softening as she watched him. Despite the strange circumstances, a bond was forming. It was subtle, born out of shared danger and mutual respect. At dawn, they were led to the first test. It was a labyrinth, vast and complex, with walls that shifted and moved like living organisms. Jared's first thought was that this was impossible. But Kirill whispered, observe patterns. Think ahead. Do not rush. He did exactly that. He studied the walls, noticing slight differences in texture and light patterns. Using logic and observation, he navigated the labyrinth, avoiding traps and hidden pitfalls. Kirill followed silently, impressed. Humans often relied on brute strength, but Jared's mind worked differently. By mid-morning, they reached the center. Jared had completed the first test, clever and cautious. The elders acknowledged his success with nods. Kirill's tail flicked lightly in approval. The second test awaited. It was a combat obstacle course full of swinging blades, laser grids, and moving platforms. Jared was not trained for this kind of physical challenge, but he remembered every maneuver he had learned as a salvage pilot, jumping across machinery, balancing on narrow beams, using his environment. Kirill observed, occasionally calling out advice or warning him of traps. At one point, a mechanical drone, part of the trial, malfunctioned and charged toward Kirill. Without thinking, Jared dove, pushing her out of the way and taking a blow himself. His shoulder burned with pain, but he gritted his teeth and continued. The elders watched, their expressions slowly shifting from skepticism to admiration. By late afternoon, he had completed the obstacle course. Kirill gave him a rare smile, and for the first time, Jared felt a spark of pride. He had survived challenges that most humans would fail. The final test was the most daunting, a simulated battle to protect Kirill against multiple opponents. The trial was not just about fighting. It was about instinct, strategy, and courage. Jared had no weapons, yet he had to anticipate attacks, shield Kirill, and maneuver through a series of dangerous situations. The simulation began. Shadows of warriors emerged from hidden alcoves, and Jared acted on pure instinct. He ducked, rolled, and dodged, using his environment cleverly. When an enemy drone aimed a lethal strike at Kirill, he threw himself in the path, taking the full force. Pain seared through him, but he did not falter. Kirill's eyes widened. She had faced countless warriors, but she had never seen anyone protect her with such reckless determination. In that moment, the bond shifted subtly. Respect became something deeper. Trust began to grow. When the final bell rang, signaling the end of the trial, Jared lay on the ground, bruised and bleeding. The elders approached, their expressions unreadable. Kirill stood beside him, her claws gently brushing against his arm. The eldest elder finally spoke. "The human has survived. He has shown intellect, agility, and courage. Most importantly, he has protected Kirill without hesitation. The bond is validated. The mate is worthy." A collective murmur of approval ran through the hall. Some warriors clapped, others bowed slightly. Kirill's clan had accepted him. Kirill herself stepped forward, her amber eyes softer than before. She extended her hand. "You survived," she said quietly. "Not just the trials, but the day. You have proven yourself. Perhaps I underestimated humans." Jared took her hand, wincing slightly at the bruise on his shoulder. "I'm glad I didn't fail. I didn't even know I could do this." She gave a small, amused smile. "You are strange, human, but worthy." For the first time since the crash, Jared felt a sense of belonging. He was no longer just a human lost in an alien world. He had been tested, judged, and accepted. And though the bond had begun in an unexpected and painful way, it now carried a promise of something more: respect, trust, and perhaps the beginning of a partnership that could defy galaxies. As they left the hall, Jared glanced at Kirill. "So, does this mean we're officially mates?" She tilted her head, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "By law, yes. By choice. That remains to be seen." Jared laughed softly. "Well, I'll do my best to make it work. Starting with dinner. I hear humans cook well." Kirill's tail flicked with a mix of amusement and exasperation. "Very well, human. We will see if your skills extend beyond survival." And so, the day ended with both of them battered but victorious. Their bond solidified in the eyes of the Vishari, and a strange new chapter of their lives just beginning. The galaxy had witnessed a human's courage, and the Vishari had learned that even the smallest species could leave a mark that could not be ignored.